welcome, allies, to the Visionary Activist Show. I'm your weaver of context, Caroline Casey. So here we are. Ritual, bonfires, or arson. Take your pick. The world's on fire, right? The world's on fire everywhere. Oregon, Canada, Sicily, Spain, France, and more, but literally and metaphorically. Whoa. So ritual, bonfires, or arson, take your pick. The Leo part of us says, create ritual or live melodrama. So we have the guiding astro mytho narrative. It is soon Lughnasa, midsummer. Some celebrate August 1st. That's the rounded off part, and that'll do. It's one of the 4 cross-quarter holidays called the 4 Gates of Power. And that's Halloween, Candlemas, Beltane, and Lammas or Lughnasa. So when power is especially enthused to be invited into the community of creation. So it's really now through Friday, August 7th, which will be exact mid-season. It's the season for ongoing exorcisms of all the demons harmful to life. We continue what was begun last week with Maryan Ishami and the Tsar, reminding us that underneath the rubble of malefactor, cruelty, and bombing stirs the antidote of powerful human ritual. The Odyssey, I have not seen it yet, but read a lot, right? So critiques, I'm wildly enthused. But one really great article said the film does most disservice to Circe, the real Circe. So we welcome the real Circe. In the actual epic, Circe is a woman trickster witch of great knowledge, more than Odysseus. And she does turn his men into swine. He has the antidote when he arrives, so she doesn't do that to him. And then they become lovers for a year. And he's reluctant to leave until his men say, shouldn't we get back on the ocean, get back on the road? And he goes, oh. But she returns all the men that she turned into swine back into their real selves, but improved, good-hearted, and wearing fine clothes, right? In the movie, apparently, it's sort of horrific. She's like, and she molds their faces into whatever the thing is, and she's just an obstacle for Ulysses to overcome. So we're inviting in the real Circe, and all the Troubadour bards and Trickster Women, everything that's been excluded by orthodoxy. The Odyssey is really in the memosphere, finding our way home to protect home. So much at risk, right? Chaco Canyon's on the risk. It's the last day of commentary going, no, don't open Chaco Canyon to drilling. We'll honor all these things. It is the full moon Kazimi tide. Kazimi is a wonderful Arabic astrological term meaning in the heart. And it's when a planet is conjunct the sun. And it's Jupiter, which was Kazimi with the sun yesterday at 6 plus Leo, whose Sabian symbol is the constellations of the night sky glow blazingly in the desert, the endless unfolding wonder of creation. So let's get astonished, right? I was delighted. I was astonished to learn that the word stoned, as in let's go get stoned, which never made sense, like stoned to death. Why? It comes from astonished. Isn't that much more fun to go, hey, let's go outside and get astonished? Or what? So let's get astonished. And so we begin, well, let me just complete the intro and we'll come back to that. It was on the full moon Kazimi tide that Troubadour bard Glenn Hansard rode out of this world on his motorcycle, whose life we honor, and all musician Troubadour bards dedicated to community well-being as culture doctors. In full Irish tradition, I like Sean Padraic O'Donoghue who often says, let's see the long ago dead emerging to welcome the recently dead, to help us now, right? So, yeah, so let's begin putting into our bonfire what's been excluded. And I'm still metabolizing the complexity of my journey to Morocco and the beauty of Islam. And, well, everything can be imprisoning and liberating, right? And Sufism, everything can be liberating and imprisoning. But I was not astonished, but like noted that, in the group I was traveling in and in kind of mainstream, and even not mainstream Morocco, like, cannabis was like, ooh, keef was ooh. But one of my treasured pictures bestowed upon me by a great friend. It's a picture of a Bedouin, crouching down, off his camel with his pipe. And it just says, at each stop, the Bedouin takes out his keef pipe and takes a puff. And it's like, yeah, I feel kinship with that, but that was not in the Morocco, certainly not in the medium Orthodox group with which I was traveling. And so I did not myself partake, but I now wish I had. But let's go to the reel on cannabis by Elle. It's a wonderful guide, and it's something that we might want to put in our bonfire. So here's Elle's reel on cannabis.
Long before it was called marijuana, the plant was known as ganabos, sacred incense in the temples of ancient world. In old Hebrew texts, kane bosom was one of the ingredients of the holy anointing oil. And it wasn't for pleasure, no, it was for presence, a bridge between matter and spirit. But the first written records of its use don't come from Middle East. They come from ancient China around 2700 BCE. The legendary emperor healer Shen Nong listed cannabis in his Materia Medica as a sacred herb that calms the mind, eases pain, and restores balance between yin and yang. For the Chinese, it wasn't vice, it was the qi, the life current that flows through all things. Across the cultures, it played the same role. In India, the god Shiva is called Lord of the Banga. Ascetics would drink a mixture made from cannabis leaves before meditation, believing it opened the third eye, the space where illusion dissolves. The Scythians, the nomadic tribes of Central Asia, burned its seeds in ritual, tends to enter altered states, and Herodotus wrote of their laughter as a form of purification. To the Sufis, smoke was never about escape. It was the metaphor of the veil, the moment spirit touches form and disappears again. Even alchemists saw the plant's resin as a symbolism of transformation, the sap that captures sunlight and turns it into a visible dream. In esoteric medicine, cannabis was linked to the element of air, expansion, perception, and signal. It thins the veil between the conscious and the subconscious, making patterns visible that were always there. That's why, for some, it brings clarity, and for others, chaos. It magnifies what's within. Every age tries to control what opens perception. And yet, throughout history, this plant kept reappearing in sacred spaces, from incense burners to ritual ointments. Maybe because deep down it's not about intoxication, it's about translation. It reminds us that consciousness itself can shift states. That matter is not fixed, and neither are we.
Right. Matter is not fixed, and neither are we. So whether you partake or not, nonetheless, we welcome it as part of our heritage, part of our allies, and every now and then, like, let's take all habits and throw them into the cauldron that they become sacraments of dedication, as Elle is narrating. She associates it with the element air. Many ways to tell every story. In Culpeper's herbal, cannabis is associated with Saturn, which is dedication, focus, and leadership. And we go, well, okay, we honor everything, right? Everything is better with dedication. We go, right? To get astonished, which means thunderstruck. So let's get astonished, and I like putting that in there. And we're welcoming all that's been exiled, that is, or dissed, or undervalued, back into our midsummer ongoing Lughnasa festival, this Kazimi tide, in the heart. So our guiding chart today, has 11 plus Scorpio rising, which is the Renaissance Council, the convening of those dedicated to community well-being. So it's not by snootiness, the Renaissance Council, it's by affinity. And it describes who we are and what we're doing here, disguised as a radio show. We're a Renaissance Council of those dedicated to community well-being, accessing all of our skills, all of our participatory skills. And really, astrology in its deepest form is one of the great master languages guides of how to be a fully participatory Earth citizen. Right, so there's much that we want to, let me introduce just a little bit of the players, right? And then there's much horrific news and much antidote. We want to weave between them all. So 11 Scorpio rising, okay. Venus is at 22 Virgo. We can see Venus after sunset, very bright. She's emerged from the underworld as the evening star, gets higher and higher in the sky, very bright in the western sky after sunset. She is at 22 Virgo. So any language, any craft that we're dedicated to, we become, is how synchronicity will speak to us. So 22 Virgo, I know it really well because when this country was founded, Neptune, its guiding vision, unrealized but needed, right, was 22 Virgo. And when I first encountered Barack Obama, way back in 2000, I think at the Boston Democratic Convention, I go, who is this guy? Well, Barack Obama's Mars is 22 Virgo. So I go, okay, he's Marsing, he's animating the desirable vision of the country, which he did, and he continues to do. Now, many befoibled things, terrible things, okay, nothing is one story. Nothing is one story, right? So here we are, Venus at 22 Virgo, meaning we can become intimate with the desirable vision of this country. It squares Mars, which is pretty close to where Mars was when the country was founded. So this is what's called a mutable square. And every part of this beautiful language is descriptive and guiding. The description is the word disaster, which means against the stars, when we pit our petty small will against the larger pulse. And we remember that we have most of the questions asked at the Delphic Oracle, and they were very sensible. Are our plans in accord with the gods, the planets, the pulse of creation, the greater good of community? And if not, what should we do to come into accord? Very sensible. What a good idea. So the Sun and Jupiter they were cazimi yesterday. They're pretty close right now, opposite Pluto. I'll introduce these parts of ourselves. We have endogenous receptors for cannabis and DMT. We have endogenous receptors for mythology and astrology, really. It's within us. It hums us. So it doesn't require belief. It's just like as we speak of these qualities of intelligence, may they hum in all of our hearts. And they are in Leo, which makes cazimi in the heart even more powerful, in the heart. And our word charisma comes from charis, from which we get charitable, and Eucharist and Cordelia, dedicated heart in Shakespeare. So true charisma is a charitable heart, right? We have a lot of toxic mimics out there, but true charisma. And this astonishing pattern in the sky, which we go, which is descriptive, there's danger, there is great danger. And then there's guiding, which is the word consider, which means con is with and sitters the stars. We are gathering to consider in order to avert greater disaster. There we go. So let's put many things on our table, but one description. So Venus in Virgo square Mars in Gemini. These are the two Mercury realms. Virgo, where Venus is the hermetic Hermia, power of language to craft reality. Power of eloquence and knowledge and participatory magic. Language is one of the great technologies of magical participation. The word abracadabra comes from abar e kadar. As I speak, so shall it be. And it doesn't mean to tiptoe around like, oh, I had a bad thought or a bad, or I said a bad thing. It's the repetitive dedication. And it squares Mars and Gemini. Gemini is the other Mercury realm of vernacular. So the description can be, it's very wired and jumpy and quirky, and mechanics and things can be like, it's our nervous system, which is wide open. We know from many studies and Dan Brown's pretty interesting book, The Secret of Secrets, which is about death in a very interesting way. And it talks about GABA, which I think I'm going to get it wrong, is an amino acid. No, somebody correct me. But it's something in us that when it goes down, it opens the filters. And apparently our GABA levels when we approach death open, like, whoa, and when they go up, it's the filters are on, so we're not overwhelmed, right? So this particular pattern, I think, kind of can lower our GABA, which is just the nervous system that notices more per inch or per minute than usual, like, so it requires like so much information, and then at a certain point, full must pull back into the bat cave so that everything can waft into order. And Venus in Virgo, Virgo is called the ruler of ritual magic. It says obsessive compulsive disorder or ritual magic. Take your pick, right? And we go, okay, there we go. So then we go, well, where's Mercury? I go, Mercury has recently been on a on a retrograde reflective journey. Now it's direct in the sign of Cancer to feel what's needed and respond. It squares 90-degree angle to Saturn. Saturn is stationing retrograde at 14 plus Aries, whose image is a woman weaving a magical basket out of serpents. And it's like, well, there's an interesting assignment. Okay, just put that in your pipe and get astonished, going. And the square is, what we feel in ourselves and in the world, which is the censorship, the blocking. When we outsource Saturn to incompetent, cruel malefactors, right? We should be frightened, but we want to insource our authority, and find a way around the obstacle, Like the previous interview in the show with Robert McFarlane, pretty great, going, yeah, I wrote a critical piece, and I was worried about getting into the country, but no problem, we move around it. And then Saturn has a quintile to Pluto. And let me just translate that into something we can all feel. Pluto, death, rebirth, the cauldron, the alchemical cauldron, the exorcism that we're going to play with, and the whole tradition of exorcisms. And Pluto's image is the council of ancestors. A young leader listens to their voices. And to the ancestors, we're all young. And the quintile is irresistible eloquence that's in all of our magic backpacks, saying when we are Saturn, when we are dedicated to wise leadership, when we're dedicated to accountability, we can be irresistibly eloquent. We don't have to convince anybody, which means to conquer. We can hold a true perception that becomes like a tuning fork and hums in others. So people go, oh, now that you said that, I see that. And then my friend Sylvia always says, Caroline, the quintile is that, but it's also the capacity to open portals between worlds. Now we're back in Lughnasa. Now we're back in exact mid-season, and open portals between worlds, and we go, and if it's not true, let's make it true. Because there's much to address. We want much to invite in to help us out. So there's more that we'll play with in the chart. We'll to and fro. This is part improv, part here we are too, feeling what we all need and responding. But let's go to the next, what's on our table, right? The good narrative. Here we go, good narrative.
Hey, we want to open a library with a big vegetable garden on the outside. That'll take about 2.5 to 4 decades. For approval? No, to review. Hey, we want to chop down the city's last remaining forest and put up 50,000 acres worth of data centers that will use more than twice the energy of the entire state. How does tomorrow sound?
Right. So that's again, part of the genius of now, planets in Gemini, Uranus in Gemini, is liberating profundity in conversational vernacular, in short form, saying a lot in a little. We have a lot of that. But we also got to know the horrific. I apologize for playing this short clip of horrific noise in a moment, but this is what data centers sound like. And the photos you can find, or the films, the videos you can find all around, are like they're right next to people's houses. And also they're right next to like birds and animals and creatures, and it's part of the horrific hubris that we want to throw into the cauldron, right? So here's just a taste so that we know what we're doing to the rest of life. Here's horrific noise. And that's just at low volume. It's higher than that, really. And you can see, birds on a tree going, it's crazy making. I mean, I know when my neighbors used to have hums, not like that, but or lights that were too bright, it would make me crazy, just crazy. Like, I want to be but crazy, and we go, oh. So how shall we draw upon the tradition of exorcism and throwing everything into the cauldron? And this is one of my favorite narrators, lucid narrative. Here we go.
So hours before the war started again, Kazakhstan smelt it in the air. Something was coming. Missiles are about to fly in the skies again. Everyone at the table felt it. So what does Kazakhstan do? They sign a 27-year deal with Iran to build a terminal at Bandar Abbas, exactly where the US strikes would hit later that night. They knew it was coming, but they still signed anyways. And that tells you something you need to know. Because on June 17th, America and Iran signed the papers in Pakistan. Sanctions come off and Hormuz reopens. Everybody's happy. Every front page calls it the end of the war. But nobody at that table who signed thought it was actually the end. Because you need to watch what each one of them did with that pause. Iran moved very fast. 40 million barrels of oil out the door right away. They sold it at 20% premium to buyers who'd been waiting for months. So the treasury refills with around $1 billion. So the MOU was oxygen for Iran. Then America reloaded. The Pentagon had burnt through a third of its tomahawks in the first round. The pause was part of the supply chain. 3 weeks to refill the magazine, right, before swinging back again. Then Turkey hosted a NATO summit and Turkish President Erdogan walked out saying, Trump personally promised me with 5 F-35 fighter jets, which Turkey has been waiting on since 2019, when Trump expelled them from the program because they bought Russian air defense systems. And he told them not to do it, but they didn't listen and they did it anyways. Then look at Pakistan and China. They quietly locked in the mediator role for round 2. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar in Shanghai, and they urged both sides to respect the provisions of the MOU. So Kazakhstan's thinking now, how about us? Let us get something. Let's buy it cheap right now before the sirens start going off again. Everyone at that table used the pause for something. Nobody used it for peace or to further the negotiations. And now we're back exactly where we left off. The deal didn't fail. It delivered, just not what everybody thought it would. This war does not end. It pauses. They take hydration breaks. Each side signs when they need to breathe for a bit, and then they get back to swinging again. So there will probably be another Islamabad memorandum, and it will probably collapse the same way. But every time that happens, everyone gets deeper into the escalation trap like we're seeing right now, until we're past the point of no return. Everybody knows that, but nobody will say it. So we're going to have to see what happens.
Right, so we're going to have to see what happens. The escalation trap, right? So we note the danger, that's important, and he brings up Bandar Abbas, which our next narrator, which we played last week, but we're going to play it again because I find her so useful, Maryan Ishami, is going to take us also to Bandar Abbas and what lies underneath it as well, which is the exorcism ritual we can all participate with after the break, But so here's Maryan Ishami receiving the baton from our lucid narrative guide about Bandar Abbas, the port, and it will guide us into more. So here's Maryan Ishami.
We are going into the 6th consecutive day and night of U.S. airstrikes on Iran, and the intensity of the focus of these strikes is in the southwest of Iran, and it's been greater than it may appear from the outside. Now, the southwest is less covered by foreign reporting and digital tools, so the picture from these provinces is arriving slowly, but it is arriving. In the last 24 hours, 2 bridges have been hit in Hormozgan province. One of them, the Kohoristan Bridge, sits on the main route connecting Bandar Abbas to Shiraz and central Iran. Provincial authorities say a fuel tanker was crossing when the missile struck. The tanker exploded, the driver was killed, a section of the bridge is now gone. We can confirm these elements from images as well. Now, casualty figures beyond that are less clear. Fars, which is a state-affiliated outlet, reported that 2 have been killed and 4 wounded in the bridge strike, but state television later put the toll at 7. But at a minimum, we can see that civilians were on these bridges when they were hit. Now, CENTCOM says that these strikes are targeting military logistics. Bandar Abbas is Iran's largest commercial port and home to IRGC naval facilities. So cutting the port off by this logic from the interior is about enforcing the blockade and controlling the Strait of Hormuz. I'd like to talk about this region in a little bit more detail. This is the area I'm from. It is extremely diverse and extremely beautiful. Life here has always been shaped by the opening to the sea. Fishing and a pearl trade that has run between this coast and East Africa for centuries. That trade also carried people. It brought Africans to Iran, some free and some enslaved. Today's Afro-Iranian community, sometimes called Bombasi, is concentrated along this coast, and estimates of their numbers nationally range from the hundreds of thousands into the millions. Out of that history also came Bandari music, literally meaning port music. It's rhythmic, percussive, built around an instrument called the ney and ban, which is a kind of bagpipe, and hand drums. It carries East African call and response patterns underneath Persian and Arab melodies. The dialect here, Bandari, carries heavy Arabic influence and is linguistically distinct from Farsi. Many Muslims in this region are Sunni and not Shia, like the majority of the country. Then there's also Zar, a healing ceremony using drumming and trance to work through grief and spiritual distress, with roots in East African tradition still practiced on Reshm Island. Between Reshm Island and the mainland sits the Hara forest. These are mangroves that have grown in that strait for millions of years. It's a UNESCO biosphere reserve and a nursery ground for shrimp and fish, a wintering stop for migratory birds, and home to sea turtles and dolphins. I just wanted that on the record somewhere in this volume of coverage. Yes, these are ports and strategic waterways, but there's also shared history and the shared ancestry of us. Bridges can be rebuilt, lives and what these communities are to all of us cannot.
Right. I love her. Played that clip last week, playing it again now because I find it such an important segue to the exorcism music, because she goes into all of that. And just to repeat, Bandar Abbas, just, it sounds wonderful, the name. The commercial port, but diverse and beautiful, opening to the sea, pearl trade, mangroves thousands of years old, a nursery for life, right? And again, the Malefactor's attack on all life, is really everywhere, and we are kinned with everything. And our friend Sarah James, Gwitchin Elder, calls, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge also under danger. Everything beautiful is under danger. And she says, don't call it ANWARC, because if you make it an acronym, they'll kill it. And the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge is called by the Gwitchin the place where all life begins. It's like, so much of life, goes through there, and so much goes through the Strait of Hormuz, named after Ahura Mazda. And the Yemenis are closing their strait, which is called the Strait of Grief, right? There are words. But Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Light in Zoroastrianism, who takes on the forces of darkness and fights them in the strait. Anyway, so there's no one story, no one good thing, no one. But if we know the myth, we can participate. If we don't, we're possessed. So the power of names and places as well. And then when Maryan Ishami says the word, it's the place because of the syncretism, right? Syncretism is a sacrament, this blending of many cultures, no one story, no one culture, no one anything, no, just brewing. And it's from this fertility. It's like the riptides in the sea, where the comes together, incredibly turbulent, incredibly fertile. And that's why we love these places of confluence, where she says it's Shia and Sunni and African and Bombasi culture and Bandari music. And then she said, the Tsar. And I go, oh, we all have our own heritage, our own story is full of things, the Tsar. And it's like, oh, I remember when I was taught the Tsar, in Middle Eastern music as an Egyptian exorcism rite. And all cultures have this. And we played it last week, and it's long. It'll be our break music into the second part of the show. And adorable Kirsten, who was bored up last week, I had actually kind of texted her in the middle, going, "You can, fade out, But she said, "No, I didn't even see your text. I was just dancing." And I want to invite all of us, because you'll hear this is Omar Khorshid again to give fresh expression to old things. So this is him from the '60s, but he's using an electric guitar to give expression to this very old ritual, which many cultures have. And you'll hear the spooky music, and it takes the artist, it takes all of us down to the ground where we thump the earth, thump, thump. You'll hear it, right? And then the dancer, the artist, the musician, all of us during what's called our break music, but it's really participatory exorcism, it takes on the demons of the community and works them out. So, feel free, if you're in an unself-conscious way, wherever you are, undulate, take on the demons of the community, and we're together. It's safe to do it together in the community, and transforms them. So here is Omar Khorshid and the Egyptian Czar, which also is humming in Bandar Abbas, and we can also find it in Cuba. We'll come back after this, but do feel enthused to participate in this powerful ritual of transforming demons of the community. Here we go, Omar Khorshid. Well, all right. I hope we were undulating. I hope we were participating in The Tsar by Omar Khorshid, brought alive by Maryan Ishami's narrative that where the U.S. and Israel are bombing, Bandar Abbas is underneath that, is where the Tsar is part of this syncretism. And it's in all cultures. It's in all cultures. When I was in Cuba, there was the Congo dances that were done by men, and the women were like, hey, how come only the men are doing it? They said, oh, it's a very important tradition that the men made up 20 years ago. And they're going, well, out of the way, we're taking it on. And the same thing, which is where the artist, the creative, passionate, dedicated part of all of us takes on the demons of the community, and there are so many, and cooks them into community joy. We remember David Graeber saying on his exit line, always remember that human society has had the capacity to transform from authoritarian to egalitarian in what would seem like a historic instant. We go, we're rooting for that. We're fully aware. We're fully aware. But again, in our syncretism, brewing many things together, and it is the full moon Kazemi behind us, tide. It is Lughnasa. It is one of the 4 cross-quarter holidays. It's mid-season, celebrated tomorrow, August 1st or August 2nd sometimes, but it's really August 7th, which is exact mid-season. So it's all around now. Any exorcisms you want to do, right? And they are to be found in all cultures. As part of a community's expansive form of participating to dissolve evil, right? And so there's that. So this powerful time, people's death charts are as powerful and intriguing and mysterious as their birth charts. And so Glenn Hansard, that I did not know well, but now he's everywhere. Great troubadour bard, great contributor to culture. He left the pub. He wasn't drinking. He was an Irishman who wasn't drinking. He gave up drinking, but he'd been at the pub very late, and he rode out of this world on his motorcycle at 4:30 a.m. on July 29th. I have his chart and the death chart as well. But when he left, and we don't know, I say let us not impose, constraining certainty on liberating mystery. We go, and death is certainly one of those. I like to think of the Council of Ancestors, young leaders, all of us listen to their voices. Now Glenn Hansard has joined the Council of Ancestors, and I like to think of them cheering us on. But it's also in all of our cultures, we reaching back. And because we have the Pluto Council of Ancestors, quintile Saturn, it's like, it is in our literal DNA. The ancestors know how to ride this chaotic time in the underworld of metabolizing evil into nutrient for actual mutual aid and collaborative community. So we honor and all musician troubadour bards dedicated to community well-being as culture doctors. And just to repeat what Sean Patrick O'Donoghue says, let's see the long ago dead emerging to welcome the recently dead, to help us befuddled humans out. So when Glenn Hansard was born, his sun is at 0 degrees Taurus. Right now in the sky, Chiron is at 0 Taurus. The entire history of mentors. And so there's something being handed to us, too, the tradition of mentors who are tied to the earth, and that language and beauty and voice and song come from the earth, and they connect us to community good. The troubadour, the musician, is somebody deeply dedicated to community good. So his death chart is the sun, Kazemi with Jupiter, right there, 6 Leo, whoa, opposite Pluto. We go, okay, lad, riding on out, and we want to honor you and your dedication. And I also have his progress chart too, which is his progress Mercury, 4 degrees Gemini. Uranus in the sky right now is 4 Gemini, whose image is a radical magazine circulating, liberating community ideas. We go, well done, Glenn Hansard. Wherever you be, we call upon your joy, your celebration, your beauty. Here's a brief honoring of what he did for the community, Dublin Simon.
We're devastated. He was a beacon of light as we approach Christmas. What's Glenn going to do? Who's he going to bring? Who's going to support us? He was a beacon of light to us on that every year. And he never failed us. He never failed us. We have 1,200 men, women and children in our accommodation unit, in our housing, in our treatment services tonight. Some of those people are there because of the support of Glenn and the musicians and what they did with the busk and that iconic traditional event in Dublin, Simon, over the last decade, 15 years. He rang some of his mates, asked them what they were doing, came out onto the street, and just around the corner on Grafton Street, he established the first busk. It was Monday, Imelda May joined soon after that, Sinead O'Connor, Shane McGowan, all them, Dermot Kennedy, everybody came out, his friends in the frames. And because of that, and during COVID, we estimate well over 2 million was raised for the Dublin Simon community over the last 15 years. So he has established with Imelda and Bono and all his friends an iconic tradition in this city that's unique and very, very personal for anybody that's here. I say to people, if you go to the busk once, you'll go a second time. You go a second time, and it's a tradition in your family. And that's the legacy that he has left us. It's beautiful, it's Irish, it's quintessential Irish, it's unique.
There we go. And now we'll hear from Glenn Hansard himself and a beautiful song that he wrote. Here's Glenn Hansard.
And of all the money that e'er I spent it in good company. And of all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. And for all I've done, for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. And to all the comrades that e'er I had, who would be sorry for my going away. And to all the sweethearts that e'er I've loved, who would bid me one more day to stay. And as it falls upon my lot that I should rise and you should not, so fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. And if I had money enough to spare and leisure time to sit a while, there is a girl in this fair land who surely has my heart beguiled. With her long dark hair and ruby lips, she surely has my heart enthralled. So raise to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. So raise to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. Come.
So that was Glenn Hansard, who died yesterday at 4:30 a.m. just outside Dublin after a long music session. He wasn't drinking, but he wrote Out of This World. And it was a glorious exit chart. Again, the sun, Kazemi with Jupiter, heartfulness. You know, Chiron in the sky was at 0 Taurus. When Glenn Hansard was born, his sun was at 0 Taurus, going, ooh. Chiron is the entire history of mentors. Chiron starts a school for future cultural heroes. And the first thing he teaches them is how to take bows and arrows and turn them into lutes, into stringed musical instruments. So his first lesson, Chiron's lesson to all of us, is the transformation of war into art and music through art and music as part of our powerful magic backpack and kinship and heritage. We go, woo. And he does have well-known students and not. He's a complete egalitarian, Chiron is. Doesn't care about status, but he does teach Orpheus how to play the lute, and he does teach Asclepius how to be the Greek god of healing. So in antiquity, healing and art and music are one thing, and the ancient world peers at the modern world and says, why are you always separating things that belong together, like healing and art, and cultural transformation with the power of music? All of that. And all the people mentioned, again, the power of music, the power of gathering, the power of community gathering and group exorcisms to summon the demons of the earth and to transform them with music, part of that dynamic. And we go, whoo. And then just a little bit, a glorious exit chart with, which is much like the guiding chart of now, which is the constellations of the night sky glow blazingly in the desert, like, the endless unfolding wonder of creation. And it trines Neptune. So right now we have this astonishing pattern, which is Uranus at 4 Gemini, radical magazine, circulating, liberating ideas. Neptune at 4 Aries, the power of yearning and music. Neptune is dreams, vision, cannabis, music. And the ancient writers 2,500 years ago said yearning, longing is one of the primal fuels for personal and community change. If you follow your yearning, it will take you on a journey you need to go on to cultivate your unique gift. And that's for all of us. The unique gift of the individual contributed to community in this blazing way, united with the council of ancestors and everything that we can feel humming in our heritage, wants to be invited. It's like the backstage invisible would like to participate, but requires invitation. And it's music and heartful dedication that, that serves as an invitation. And Uranus, trickster genius at the radical magazine circulating, liberating ideas dynamic, in Glenn Hansard's death chart, but for all of us available, Uranus, trickster genius. It's again nature's experimental genius that has no category about success, fail. Just try stuff. Try this. Nope. Try that. Nope. Try that. Whew, yeah. Try things. It's why I do so like, we won't play it because it's too long, but I really love the riffing flow of Harry Mack. And I have his chart as well. And he talks about years of putting work in to build the skills this clever, the rhymes this clever. It's like, it takes work. It takes work. These are dedicated people. I mean, Glenn Hansard left school when he was 14, I think. And his teacher was like, well, what do you love? And he goes, I love music. And he's like, go for it. Leave orthodoxy. Leave school. Go forth and do it. And he did. He did. And became, was in the movies, the Commitments, and many things, and won an Academy Award for the song, I forget the falling something, excuse me, but yes, that power. And so Uranus says to all of us, it's as though, trickster genius, coyote, dangerous in a good way. May we all be dangerous in a good way and partner with that which is dangerous in a good way, bows down in front of each one of us going, woof, woof, want to play? And Uranus says, I'm going to connect each one of you, all of you here, everyone here, with the coolest things possible, inwardly and outwardly. And all I want from each one of you, this is participatory, right? Just for the, is just a declaration of, we are available, a wonderful word. It means capable of great good. We are available and we are willing, a wonderful word with a double entendre, like willing intending and willing like, hey, what the hell? And Uranus Trickster says, I just want you, everyone here, to proclaim, we are willing and available. And Uranus Trickster goes, game on. Game on. It's the capacity to do impossible things. And the last ideas associated with Uranus are democracy, equality, synchronicity. And it's like, well, what do they have to do with each other? And I found out through synchronicity and wonder, whatever we wonder right now will attract a responsive augury. Like, I wonder what, democracy, equality, synchronicity have to do with each other. Oh, it will magnetize a responsive augury. So I got it staged that when we treat each other, when we aspire to embody democracy, to treat each other as equals, right? That this is really this is the inner and the outer work here. I used to say the rate of synchronicity increases. I don't think the rate of synchronicity increases. I think our availability to synchronicity, which is always in the field, expands and we are available. And this is important. And Saturn chimes in and says, to feel dedication, like the dedication of a life like Glenn Hansard, feel the dedication of those who performed the czars throughout the millennia, and to feel ourselves etched against it, going, oh, I want to be a deeper, dedicated person. Saturn's stationing says, each person, each of us in the Renaissance Council, when we wonder what is our primary dedication, and Neptune says, we just want you to wonder. We just want you to wonder, and you can't blow this. It's like, what should we wonder about? Neptune says, wonder about what we should be wondering about. Just keep it going, because it will enter into the conversation, into the considering with the stars conversation. So as we even wonder what is our primary dedication, and for what do we want to be a voice, that's really crucial. That inner wondering strengthens our outer signal. So we're more likely to be danced into place with that with which we are in accord. So we have just a few. There's such richness. I will be putting it in the Patreon notes, Patreon Visionary Activist Show. Yes, I will. I aspire to be a more dedicated, disciplined person. There we go. Like all these people that I so admire. Admire means to move towards. So let's just have a little quick thing, which is left-wing populism.
People keep saying that populism on the left is as dangerous as populism on the right, and that's so true. Sure, the right-wing populists want a white ethno-state, but the left-wing populists want people to have healthcare. Both extremes are equally bad. One wants to put minorities in internment camps, and the other opposes carpet-bombing children. That's why we need a middle ground between fascism and free buses, because white nationalism is dangerous, but it's not as scary as people being able to afford insulin.
Right, satire. We want satire and irony. We want satire and irony as we ride out into the world. We'll ride out with the Lakota prayer song in 2 seconds here. But gathering all of our skills, our cannabis as sacraments, may everything be a sacrament by a power of our dedication in accord with that. May we be danced into place where we can do the most good, have the most fun, and cultivate and contribute our gifts to the community. And we'll just ride out with this Lakota prayer song because beauty and cruelty are neck and neck, but we're betting on beauty. Here's Lakota prayer song. And I just want to thank Rod Akil, our board wizard, and ride on out on this Lakota prayer song of beauty. Woof.
Historian and acclaimed author Robin D.G. Kelley.
David Walker, who was a Black abolitionist, who was a free African-American, published this pamphlet called The Appeal to the Colored Race, where he says, do you understand your own language? Hear your language proclaimed to the world July 4th, 1776. And what he's saying is that you need to be careful. First of all, you don't even believe your language. You don't even believe that all men are created equal because you're certainly not practicing it. But the other part you don't actually understand is that when you say that oppressed people have a right to throw off their government, to resist, to rebel, you've got to understand that's going to happen to you. Don't be fooled into thinking that enslaved people, that Black people will never throw off your murderous government, but rather violent insurrection is inevitable. It's going to come.
Get learned only on KPFA. Hey, got a minute? Actually, 30 seconds? We want to hear from you. Tell us why you listen to KPFA. Shout out your favorite show, share a moment that stuck with you, or just say hello. Leave us a message at 510-848-6767, extension 622. Your voice could end up on the air, online, or in a future KPFA promo. That's 510-848-6767, extension 622. We can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Please leave a message after the tone.
Wait, that was the whole fun drive? Yup. Thanks to you, we kept it short, rounded up the KPFA gang, and jumped right back into regular programming. But if it ended before you had a chance to donate, don't panic. Thank you gifts are still available through Sunday, August 9th at kpfa.org.
You're listening to 94.1 KPFA in Berkeley, 89.3 KPFB in Berkeley, 88.1 KFCF in Fresno, and online everywhere at kpfa.org.